Hello, checking in with Mss Mcknz, chapters 23, 24, 25. Can't remember if it's 26 as well. I figured I'd check in now because I think I'll probably get into the rush at the end and then I'll probably just do a final review. Um, I love Miss Mcknz. Margaret Mcknz, Miss Margaret Mcknz. She is such a good character. And I was thinking that, I've been reading a lot of Shakespeare lately with the comedies where you have a couple of, like, the couples. I'm thinking about Cymbeline. I'm thinking about Much Ado About Nothing, where you have the male character just treats the female like complete shit. And we're supposed to believe it when they get together again at the end, and that it's in some ways a happy thing. Um, and that actually Anthony Trollope, this is of course in the 19th century now, is having his heroine tested greatly, uh, but isn't actually turning the male into a right fucker, right asshole. Um, and at least I hope he isn't. I guess we'll get to the very end and we'll find out. Um, but in this sections, yeah, Miss Mcknz has gone back to kind of humble boarding room where she's kind of getting rather mightily tested by her landlady, who wants her to come down and have eat with her and her husband, but she feels it's not proper for her to go eat with her husband. There still is that kind of class thing, and that he is a humble guy, and and the landlady thinking, well, now that you're kind of you're reduced, well, now you can, and you're kind of being above yourself or something like that. At least that's what you get the sense. But she refuses and just has her stuff in her room, her stuff in her room. She won't dine with them. That would be a major, maybe irrevocable step down in social status. But at the same time, Mr. McGuire has taken it upon himself that no, maybe your money still hasn't gone the thing, and he indeed sends a letter to this effect to John Bell, who hands it over to his lawyer, and his lawyer answers saying, like, your this case has been settled honorably, and you do anything else and it can be libel. At which point McGuire says, like, probably legally I don't have a chance, but in the court of public opinion, maybe. And it takes it upon himself to start the writing a story of it, and not using any names, but basically outlining the story. Doing this in ecclesiastical paper, which apparently is well known for their savage, backbiting ferocity. So, since he's not using any names, the publisher's like, sure, I want to sell newspapers, so this will be a good story. And he kind of outlines the story from at least what his point of view is. He himself, Anthony Trollope was good. Is like, McGuire thinks that he's doing things um, for the good, that he's protecting her, he's protecting this lady, while at the same time obviously still doing it for his own greedy motives, but that he doesn't really acknowledge in himself. But yes, so he publishes this, makes a point of sending it to all the concerned parties, so really shoving it right in their faces, from the lawyer to John Ball to her landlady to Miss Mcknz herself. Everybody gets a copy of this, and they all know. And over the course of these chapters, it becomes the big cause, the big thing of, like, oh, is she being poorly done by, or is this the guy who's writing this poorly doing her by, or whatever like that. So, and she is in contact with John Ball, who still won't say anything about, marriage or anything like that, is strictly talking about it in a kind of a legalist sense, wishes that she had stayed with him, with him and their family. She says, like, look, after what your mother said to me, there's no way I think it's mother, I couldn't, Lady Ball, I couldn't, there's no way I could actually stay. Indeed, the senior Ball the father does die in these chapters, a really sarcastic, bitter old guy, which Lady Ball does come to visit Margaret, and she says her condolences, and Lady Ball's like, well, I only hope that John can live up to his example. And Margaret doesn't say anything, because what can you say with such a bitter, old, mean, sarcastic man as the Ball Senior was. But she comes there because she wants to get, she says, like, in exchange for renouncing any intention to marry my son, you will I'll give you kind of financial assistance. And she's like, I'm not renouncing anything. I am staying firm. That's the promise I made to your son, that we would both be firm. I, on my part, am keeping that up. There's no way that I will ever renounce that. And indeed, it's one of these things of, the more Lady Ball pushes, the firmer Margaret gets. And all the bullying, she's such a, and Trollope describes her as a modern day Griselda, which I was like, oh, what's Griselda? And I looked it up. It's like, Boccaccio. In Decameron, there's a story of Griselda where the husband decides to test his wife, fucking sadistic asshole, to test his wife by telling her that, oh, your two children are going to be, I'm going to execute our two children, which she accepts. He puts them away to Bologna, away from them, and it's such a fucked up story. And then he announces many years later that, oh, I've also gotten a dispensation from the Pope to set you aside and marry this new young hottie who's 12 years old, which is actually her daughter. And Griselda is a model of patience, obedience, and accepts all this, and says, yeah, I hope you're all very happy, and all that stuff. And finally, the husband is convinced that, yes, his wife is just a perfect paragon, and reveals to her, these are your children, and this is, that I was just testing you, and that we're still married, and that you can come back from your living in horrible poverty and misery and sorrow over the death of your children. It's like, and they all live happily ever after. I think, I can't remember how the story ends, but it's just like, it's one of these bizarre stories. And it's interesting that Trollope is talking about Margaret Mcknz in such a fashion. So is she being tested? And indeed, we start to get, like, the lawyer is smiling at her, John Ball is smiling at her, a rich relation, the rich Mckenzies, come to visit her, and indeed take them back to their place at what the hell is it called, Cavendish Hall or something like that. I think it's a rich Tony neighborhood that I've just heard about a lot in Anthony Trollope. And I'll have to look up, make sure these aren't reoccurring characters. But and they've taken her into her home, and John, now Lord John, they've met. And Mrs. Mcknz there, the rich Miss Mcknz there, is like, kind of takes Margaret through it all and says, like, well, maybe things aren't as bad as you think they are. Like, how, takes her through, like, all the steps of, like, so he asked you to marry him when you had money and you said no. And then when you had no money, he asked you to marry him and you said yes. Now, and Margaret talks about how that must seem really, really bad. And she says, well, no. And, Mrs. Mckenzie's like, no, it's like that, everyone knows exactly how good of a person you are. And then, And then says like, well, how do things stand? Like, do you still love him? He's like, yes, I still love him. And like, have you renounced him? It's like, no, I have not renounced him. That's what Lady Ball tried to get me to do. It's like, no, not none way so whatsoever. Well, has he renounced you? It's like, well, not really, but he also really hasn't said anything to me one way or the other. And she's Miss McKenzie's like, well, that's men for you. Like, they're not going to say anything, and you haven't said anything to him about it to prompt him to say anything. So men like that are liable not to say anything until the very day when they say, oh, okay, let's go get married. So she's like starting to get hopes there. um, we've also got stuff with with oh, the money guy, I can't remember his name. Jeremiah Snout. There's Sloam, which is the lawyer, and then there's, oh, I can't remember his name now. It's funny, I blocked on that. But the business partner with Tom McKenzie still isn't coughing up money, and that seems to have to be kind of is being paid out of the estate from John Ball's kind of promptings. Um, but yeah, this seems to be a whole thing of like, maybe there is a bit here where John John Ball is testing her to see, how good she is. Because yeah, I mentioned her earlier chapter. It does kind of look bad that she refused him when she had money. She refused John when she had money, but now that she doesn't have money, she accepted him. Now we know all the internal things for that ourselves, and so that we know that that had more to do with her changing feelings, not her changing circumstances. But it's like, yeah, so is John Ball testing her? And is it him, or is it kind of circumstances with the family that has forced him to withhold his affections and kind of all that stuff, especially with his mother, who is, basically said, if my son marries you, I'm never living in the same house with you, and, I will just go away somewhere and die, which, I'm sure is a good son. He's trying to juggle and manage that as well. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. I really like Margaret. I still really like John Ball. He's not being. I don't get the sense that he's being the sadistic asshole. I mean, God, not like Shakespeare plays where they basically try and kill the women because they think they're cheating on them. Yeah, really, really, really enjoying this. It's such good trollop. All right, more videos later.